Yo, YouTube, what is good? Um, Today here we're gonna be doing some reactions on this YouTube. Um, our first video we're gonna react to is most disturbing crimes in Marvel community. Let's get straight to
The most disturbing crimes that happen in the Marvel community, and as the video progresses, the cases will just keep getting worse. Regarded as one of the creators of the Marvel multiverse,
Stan
any
Lee.
fan of the comics and the MCU knows who Stan Lee is. And this is why the whole community mourned the comic book icon when he sadly passed away on November 12th, 2018. However, what
Rest
many
in
didn't know
peace.
was that the
He's
months
the
leading
GOAT.
up to his death were littered with betrayal and shocking revelations. Rewinding back to January
What?
2018, a couple of nurses who previously cared for the Marvel legend came out to accuse Stan of indecency, with one source saying,
Stan is an old man who seemingly lost his way. He doesn't seem to care what people think of him. He's lost his filter. He walks around without clothes and is vulgar towards women. He's also very handsy and has touched some of the women. It's unacceptable behavior, especially
What?
from an icon like Stan.
Now Stan's estate denied any of the allegations, with his attorney, Tom Lallis, adding that the accuser did not
File a civil action or report these issues to the police. Instead, Stan received demands to pay money and threats that if he does not do so, the accuser
They
will go
lying
to
on
the
my
media.
and adding more fire
They're
to the
lying on my
scandal
man's,
is a massage
Lee?
therapist named Maria
Why are you doing
Carvalho,
him like
whose face
that?
had been kept from the public. She also accused Stan Lee of inappropriate conduct during a massage
on,
session
now.
a year earlier. Now, supporters of the Spider-Man creator doubted these accusations, with Reddit users, for example, believing that the nurse's statements sound more like symptoms of dementia, giving Stan's age. Others also pointed out Stan's widely known devotion to his wife, Joanne Bucco, which made them believe that the accusations are likely a ploy to extort money from the aging icon. And these theories seem to be very possible, since the allegations would later be actually dismissed. And yet, people taking advantage of the 95-year-old comic book legend didn't stop or start there. It all actually started from his own home. With Stan's declining health and the grief of losing his wife of 69 years, his publicist, Jerry Olivares, managed to get the power of attorney over him, which meant that Jerry was legally assigned to make decisions for Stan regarding his health, business, and finances. At the same time, Kaya Morgan, a memorabilia dealer who befriended the Marvel creator, also decided to fire Stan's longtime bodyguard, Max Anderson, for behaving aggressively towards his daughter, JC Lee. And Jerry and Kaya actually continued to fire and replace the staff working for Stan, many of whom had been with him for many years. And the two of them replaced them with their own workers, surrounding Stan with people under Jerry and Kaya's payroll. But their plans for the elderly Stan started getting attention when issues of the Mighty Thor number 700 and a variety cover of Rise of the Black Panther number 1 appeared at a Marvel Avengers station in Las Vegas. This might not sound weird until we see that the comic books were advertised to have been
Hand stamped with Stan Lee's solvent DNA ink.
Now, according to the certificate of authenticity that came with the copies, the comic books, which were being sold at up to $500 per copy, were hand-stamped using Stan's real
500
blood. And just days after these
copies.
bloodstained comics appeared, fans lining up to see Stan the Man noticed that the 95-year-old looked exhausted and confused, a stark contrast to his usually upbeat convention appearances. And one video even recorded Stan having to be coached on how to spell his own name while signing autographs.
And put them back up.
Stanley, Stanley.
Another video also came out
What?
where an exhausted Stan was being pushed to make more appearances, and the elderly man then even joked to his Stan bodyguard Max that they were squeezing every penny out of him.
Are you ready to give a riveting speech? You're gonna change lives.
I thought I was finished with that. What do I have to do now?
You're never over.
You what?
I said I thought I was finished, but apparently I'm not.
Look, once we're done, we'll get out of here.
Now what do I do here?
Same thing, talk about you. We'll make some new questions.
But I don't have the.
Yes, you will. Yes.
You get your money's worth out of me.
Every single penny.
Penny, like 5 pennies.
Now, the bloodstained comic books and videos sparked rumors that Stan was being subjected to elder abuse, painting the people closest to him as
Elder
vultures
abuse.
after his money. And this actually included his only daughter, JC, after word spread that she and her father had been arguing over her inheritance. And the claims, which allegedly came from Stan himself through his attorney, suggested that Jerry Olivares, Kaya Morgan, and JC's attorney, Kirk Schenk, had gotten close to his only daughter for an ulterior motive and purpose. And this truly escalated when Kaya made several 911 calls to Stan's home between May to June of 2018. And when officers responded to one of these calls, Kaya claimed that burglars had broken in, but police only found LAPD detectives and a social worker there who were looking into the Marvel Legends condition. Another 911 call then led officers to keep Kaya away from Stan, suspecting that his manager was manipulating him, giving the repeated emergency calls.
Wow.
Are you having any problems with Kia? Because I know having problems with Kia. Because I noticed Kia kind of
Kia?
Kia.
No.
No.
He's a good friend. We're working together on a million projects.
The tired Stan defended Kea to the officers at the time, but this wouldn't actually last long. 10 days after Kea's last 911 call, he was arrested after investigations revealed that he had Stan isolated from his own family and made the false emergency calls to make Stan think he was in danger. And of course that was all to control Stan and more importantly his money. The investigation would also reveal that Jerry, who as I mentioned had power of attorney over the Marvel creator, had used his authority to steal millions from Stan. Jerry even faked a medical order to convince Stan that they needed several vials of his blood for lab tests, and instead the blood was used to create literal blood-stained comic books sold in Vegas. Now all of these actions were only possible after the passing of Stan's wife, Joanne, as she'd been the one keeping track of her husband's schedule, business and bank accounts while he enjoyed the spotlight. So her death actually left Stan vulnerable, more than emotionally, and unfortunately even after the comic book icon left this world, the exploitation didn't stop. Fans visiting the Los Angeles Comic Con in September of 2025 were shocked to see Stan greeting them despite being dead for 6 entire years.
It's great to be back at conventions like this, surrounded by fellow Marvel fans and enthusiasts. Excelsior!
This was made possible due to Cartoon Studios acquiring rights to Stan's likeness from his former company, Power Entertainment. Cartoon Studios then created an AI hologram of Stan to allow fans to speak to him from beyond the grave. All for $20 of course. Now aside from Jerry and Kea, Stan's former assistant and self-proclaimed friend, Jonathan Bolajak, also revealed himself to be profiting from the legend. After Stan was gone, he set up a Kickstarter to help him release his documentary on Stan's final days. He claimed that he'd been recording interactions with the creator to document how people took advantage of it. Why didn't Jonathan simply protect Stan when he witnessed everything? And why did he need the Kickstarter fund when he already had the footage? A Reddit post and YouTube video also exposed how Jonathan, despite claiming to be a friend of Stan's, had been profiting from him through selling valuable memorabilia, especially after the Marvel's creator's passing. Ultimately, in his final months and even after his death, Stan became not just an icon, but a lure for the greedy. Meanwhile, this next comic convention icon managed to gain the attention of his favorite Marvel creator, only to drag his own name through the mud in a bizarre way.
Remember D. Pity, the guy who cosplayed a Predator and an Assayer, apologized and said that he would leave the community, deleted that apology, came back, and then doubled down by saying he was never really sorry?
Cosplayer and YouTuber D. Pity was known for cosplaying as the Merc with the Mouth Deadpool and doing antics during conventions, which were filmed and made into GIFs, turning him into a living meme. And he was well received by Deadpool fans, so much so that he even inspired an official variant cover of 2012's Avengers #1, after he posted his viral video of Ryan Reynolds' character dancing to the K-pop song Gangnam Style. And Deadpool himself even name-dropped his cosplayer twice in his comic books, which would be mind-blowing to any fan. Now despite having a YouTube channel that has over 3.1 million subscribers, D. Pity has kept his identity a secret, at least as of making this video. He hasn't posted his name online, nor even revealed his face, as all of his cosplays, including Deadpool, have him wearing a mask. Now D. Pity likely thanked his decision to remain anonymous, since in 2024, he became the center of one of the dumbest cosplay skits in history. At SumiCon 2024, a strictly adults-only anime convention, D. Pity and fellow cosplayer Whole Wheat Pete decided to take things in a different turn. Instead of cosplaying as fiction characters like most would, they walked into the convention hall in Houston, Texas, dressed as rapper P. Diddy and singer Justin Bieber. Now in the previous decade, this might not have ringed any alarm bells, but this cosplay duo was chosen specifically because of the horrible accusations and lawsuits against Sean Diddy Combs. And the cosplay choice was further criticized for Whole Wheat Pete dressing in Justin Bieber's trademark purple jacket from his years as a young singer. This was in light of rumors spreading about how the Canadian-born singer, who was at the time, was alone with the rapper and music producer for 48 hours back in 2009. Connecting this and the accusations that P. Diddy used people for things we really can't say on this video, the public began to speculate what happened in those 48 hours. And D. Pity and Whole Wheat Pete were not only aware of this controversy, but they referenced this and poked fun at it throughout their appearance at the convention. D. Pity even bought oil to splash all over Whole Wheat Pete and posted a clip where he doused the other cosplayer with the liquid while in the bathtub, hinting at what the rumors believed happened in the infamous 48 hours. Now D. Pity, who's Filipino, was also called out for wearing a P. Diddy mask, which many considered as wearing blackface. Now expectedly, people were angry, as they saw this as making fun of an already disturbing story, and famous cosplayers like Yaya Han spoke against them and told conventions to stop allowing this type of content. Fans also demanded for the two to be banned from future events. Now as if to do damage control, Whole Wheat Pete posted an apology video a week later, only to delete the video soon after. D. Pity also apologized over on his Instagram account, even saying that his skit served as an example for others on what not to do when trying to create content. And yet, like his friend, he'd also delete the post, and even said in a later comment that he didn't want to apologize for the cosplay skits to begin with, showing his lack of remorse over the questionable cosplay choice. D. Pity simply changed his handle to just Pits, or Pits, to lessen the impact that the controversy is having on his socials. And since he's always kept his face hidden in his cosplays, he'll look like any other Deadpool cosplayer out there, so convention goers will continue interacting with him, most of them not knowing that he was the cosplayer that everyone is trying to cancel. From one community outrage to another, this next series of events has caused years of alarming hate and consequences.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Back in the MCU's Infinity Saga, actors of the beloved comic book characters had been well received by fans. But as this saga was nearing its end, everything suddenly turned on its heel. This began with the addition of Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. Although announcements of her casting were initially met with positivity, things changed when the actress went on her press tours. Fans noticed how her humor didn't really land well with her co-stars, and that she seemed smug when claiming that her character was the strongest one in the MCU.
There's no competition for me because I'm the strongest.
Then there was this.
Nah, come on now. No, she's not. She's not the strongest one in Avengers in the Marvel movie. We all know who the strongest one in there.
Speech.
Other people besides white dudes like Star Wars and would love the opportunity to do a set visit. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. I'm just saying we need to be conscious of our bias and do our part to make sure that everyone is in the room.
The comment and her repeated claim that she didn't hate white dudes led people to accuse her of being a man-hater. This resulted in her movie getting review bombed, the actress getting harassed online, and sometimes even worse, she left the earth. And sadly, Brie has become one of the most hated actresses even outside of Marvel. And while she received backlash for her comments and jokes, Wyatt Russell received threats because of his character. We know it's not easy to replace Chris Evans as Captain America. So when Falcon and the Winter Soldier's US agent was declared as the new star, fans were actually meant to hate the character. And yet Wyatt, the actor playing John Walker, aka US agent, received backlash and even death threats for his antagonistic role. Now more sensible fans came to defend the actor, but the damage was already done, and Wyatt then chose to leave social media to avoid the criticism. And if that didn't make sense, America Chavez actor Xochitl Gomez also became the center of online hate, not for her behavior or even her character, but for what her character was wearing. A patch of a rainbow flag and the words Amor y Amor, or Love is Love, on her jacket got her MCU debut film Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness banned in Saudi Arabia. The country also didn't want their people to see that America had two mothers, since it represented the queer community. And even though the actress likely had no control over her costume design and Marvel's decision not to cut the controversial plot point, Sochi got burned because of it, and her social media was filled with comments like,
"You're the reason I can't watch the movie on cinema,"
and
"Quit acting."
Another commenter even sounded like they were putting a curse on her through the internet.
Bro,
the
what is wrong with people?
Years old at the time, also received death threats because of her connection to her character. Now even after—
what is wrong with people? What the fuck? They hating on yo, oh my gosh. I can't. You hating on a character. Nah. Hold on. Okay, yeah, you can hate on the character, but the actor itself? Where do you get that from? From like hating on him like that? People are weird for that shit. Why? Just why? Why do they do that? Why the fuck do they do that shit?
After the movie was released, the young actress became the target of a different kind of attention, this time with the use of AI to create fake, explicit videos of her. The videos even reached her mother, who tried desperately to take the deepfake posts down, something no parent should have to do. These are disturbing enough, but another young MCU actor also faced severe hate just for living their lives, showing how some fans don't see the celebrities as human beings. Lexi Robb, who played the lovable Morgan Stark when she was only years old, was suddenly called out by an MCU fan, because the actress didn't seem approachable enough to ask for an autograph and photo from. Now the thing is, this all happened in a mall, where Lexi was playing with her brother just like any other normal sibling would do, and the fan had apparently criticized Lexi and told her mother to
train her daughter how to act in public.
Now her mother Jessica also revealed that since Lexi starred in the blockbuster movie, she was bullied in school as well. And Jessica, who ran her daughter's Instagram account, also had to remind people that Lexi and her family were still normal people with busy lives, and that they too become grumpy when stressed. And Lexi herself pleaded with fans to stop bullying her family and reminded people of her age. Now meanwhile, this next wave of bullying led to far more consequences that spanned for years. And it all began because of a milkshake.
On July 2017, 5 days after the death of legendary comics publisher Flo Steinberg, a group of Marvel Comics female staff went out to celebrate her by ordering milkshakes. One of the ladies, Heather Antos, decided to snap a picture and post it on Twitter. And that's when things took a turn.
Uh-oh.
Marvel's all-new, all-different initiative introduced iconic characters in a different light, including an Asian American Hulk and a version of Thor who was actually unworthy of Mjolnir. Many fans celebrated the stories, especially with the diverse representation. But as many of us know, on the internet, diversity isn't generally accepted by everyone. After the new comic books were launched, critics emerged that accused Marvel of disrespecting tradition, and among these critics was Richard C. Mayer, who launched his YouTube channel called Comics Matter, formerly known as Diversity in Comics, where he ridiculed wokeness in media.
It's a Captain America Doom book, and I still say that this one is not a recommend.
And his channel gained thousands of views, creating a following of people who agreed that the representation of non-traditional cultures and lifestyles didn't belong in the comic book industry. And then on July 28, 2017, Rich's followers found a target for their hate. On that day, Marvel Comics editor Heather Antos posted a very ordinary photo on her Twitter account. The photo was of her and her female co-workers at Marvel posing with milkshakes, as if to give a toast to one of Marvel's longest members, Flo Steinberg, who passed away just days before. But what looked like just any other post on Twitter became the start of a years-long war within the comic community. Suddenly, Heather's page was bombarded with hateful comments, with people calling her an
found and a fake.
See that brand new Hyundai Santa? Yeah, I only paid. Finish this bucket on your own.
Bro, people just really love sitting hate.
Lease an all-wheel
Like, what the fuck?
drive Hyundai Tucson SE
Oh my
for
gosh, I'm lagging so bad in this thing.
$239 a month, or get 0% APR plus 0 payments for 90 days. Hurry in.
Bro, people are just weird.
Is crack.
They are.
Plan your trip.
I don't know what is wrong with people in their head that just say some outrageous shit.
The best homes are built to last.
For no reason.
Hardy Siding stands strong through it all and leaves a lasting impression. James Hardy, what the best are made of.
To those who never got over Olive Garden's braised beef tortelloni, and those who rallied to bring...
I did it!
Bottom and Geek Girl, the creepiest collection of stereotypical SJWs anyone could imagine.
Two commenters even talked online about doing something unspeakable to Heather, but only after she signed a consent form, since
she looks like the false charge type.
Heather was then also doxxed by having her information leaked online, which could put her in real-life danger, given the earlier comments. Now Heather quickly called out the behavior, and a slew of support backed her and her friends up, creating the hashtag #MakeMineMilkshake, in reference to the comic juggernaut's Make Mine Marvel tagline. However, this online war was just getting started. A group named Comicsgate was formed, claiming that they're
a combination of comic book fans who are disappointed with the way that politics have been forced into the comic book medium.
People, however, recognized that what the group meant by politics was actually the inclusion of diverse characters such as women, people of color, and non-cis people. One of Comicsgate's prominent members became Diversity in Comics, Richard, who uploaded a now deleted video on his YouTube channel titled The Dark Roast. In the video, he targeted Heather, calling her and her co-workers defamatory names, and accusing them of doing certain favors to climb the comics industry ladder. Comicsgate then released a blacklist in February of 2018, urging people to not buy from a list of comic book creators that they believe were enemies. And this of course also included Heather. And as if granting their wish, just a month later, Heather actually announced that she was leaving Marvel, even though she framed this as her seeking new opportunities. But people from Comicsgate of course took that as a win. But while Heather began to avoid the controversy by separating from Marvel, the battle was still far from over. Also in 2018, Comicsgate's Richard launched an Indiegogo campaign to publish his new series Jawbreakers Lost Souls, and his supporters were quick to fund his creation and donated over $400,000 in total. This allowed Richard to push for Jawbreakers to be published with Antarctic Press, which was a publisher that could seriously skyrocket a success. However, when they agreed and announced the YouTuber's creation in their lineup, Marvel writer Mark Waid, who was amongst those blacklisted by Comicsgate, reached out to Antarctic Press to warn them against working with Richard. And mere hours after Mark's post, Antarctic Press actually retracted their plans to publish Jawbreakers. And this only added fuel to the fire of the online comic war. Richard decided to immediately sue Mark for interference with contract and defamation, accusing the Marvel scribe of bullying the publishers into canceling his contract. But Antarctic Press denied the claims, while the Comicsgate community, who saw the not publishing of Jawbreakers as proof that they were right about recent comics. And so they took their rage to social media again. This time they set their sights on Marsha Cook, the widow of Marvel and DC artist and writer Drain Cook. And this began when a Comicsgate supporter claimed that the deceased Darwin would have been on their side, to which Marsha responded by saying that her husband saw them as crybaby losers. And this comment of course triggered a slew of attacks against the widow, and apparently became the final straw of comic book creators to finally stand against Comicsgate. Major creators showed their support for Marsha, including DC artist Phil Hester, who criticized the fans of
heroes who are in one way or another outcasts but still choose to fight for the world, explicitly rejecting them.
While Richard dropped his lawsuit against Mark in 2020, the battle he started by being one of Comicsgate's unofficial leaders continued to this day. But this next story involves thousands of dollars going missing and a comic book fan who had to take matters into his own hands.
Most people lock their stuff in storage and trust it will be there when they return, which is complicating things for police, who worry that additional people may have been victimized and just don't know it yet.
Oh my
With the
gosh.
comic industry spanning over a century in history, some prints from the past have become high-valued commodities. For example, a 1939 first edition of Superman, #1, was sold for over $9 million in November of 2025. This shows how nostalgia and history of comic books can propel them from being originally sold for only 10 cents to being auctioned for millions today. And this is why a Waterbury attorney rented a CubeSmart self-storage unit in Shelton, Connecticut, to store one of his comic book collections. The collector, who we'll call Larry, kept 532 rare comic books that he spent years Readers Gathering, and the comic books included the first appearance issues of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, a signed copy of Daredevil #1, and a Silver Age issue of Captain America. All in all, the comic books were valued at around $200,000. So Larry trusted the self-storage facility, which offered climate-controlled units, secure access, and 24/7 surveillance. Larry thought that his years of investment would be safe there, and he didn't even bother to check his unit for more than 2 months, trusting that the password-protected entrances, elevators, and his own lock was enough. But this would end up being a mistake. On July 25th, 2019, Larry visited his secured unit and knew immediately that something was wrong. The lock in his unit was new, and it wasn't the one he'd left when he last visited the place. And so alarmed, Larry reported this to the police. And with assistance, the collector was able to access his unit again. The place was filled with other possessions, and yet nothing else was touched except for his 532 high-valued comic books, which were all missing. And besides the newly placed lock, there was nothing for the police to go with. There was no sign of forced entry, and the supposed 24/7 surveillance provided no trace of the theft. There were no fingerprints and no leads. No clue to where $200,000, years of work, and precious memories went. This was absolutely devastating for the comic book collector, and what's even more frustrating was how the police were ready to shelve this incident as a cold case. And even more mind-boggling is how this isn't the first or last time a high-scale burglary happened in a CubeSmart storage facility. Thousands of dollars have already gone missing in multiple branches across the country, including a branch in Queens, New York, where $30,000 worth of items were stolen during New Year's Day 2018. Larry realized that he placed his faith in the wrong company, and with the investigation seemingly going stale, he took matters into his own hands. Being an avid comic book collector, he knew where his merchandise would likely end up, and so for several weeks, he continuously checked places where the thieves might sell his comic books, and luckily, his efforts actually paid off. By September 3rd, 2019, Larry found 14 of his comic books being sold at an alternate universe comic shop in New Haven, and so very quickly, he reported this to the police, who would then interview the shop owner. According to his statement, the comic books were sold by 3 men carrying large bags, and the store owner didn't actually know the men, but he did write a check for one of them to pay for the comic books, and the name written on the check was James Wadsworth Sr. Investigators easily tracked James down, but the man claimed that he'd gotten the comic books from a co-worker who owed him money, and the comic books were simply there to settle the debt, and James insisted that he didn't know how his co-worker got them to begin with. Now this should have called for more investigation, and yet the police didn't follow up with his co-worker or look further into James' possible involvement in the case. Days would go by, with Larry not knowing where the rest of his collection went, and so frustrated by the slow investigation again, he took yet another step to solve his own case. This time he placed an ad offering $5,000 to whoever could give him information to catch the thief and recover his comic books, and almost instantly it worked. On October 7th, 2019, a tipster who remained anonymous told Larry that a man named Saul Salazar stole his collection with the help of James Wadsworth Sr. and his son James Wadsworth Jr. In fact, Saul had a unit in CubeSmart that was close to Larry's, and with the help of a relative who worked in CubeSmart, Saul managed to break into Larry's unit to steal the comic books, while the Wadsworth father and son helped him sell them. The tipster was even confident that if the police looked into Saul's car, they would find the remaining comic books. And so thrilled by his discovery, Larry relayed everything to the police, who in turn contacted Saul. Now to their surprise, Saul actually agreed to head to the police station to give a statement, but then he never actually showed up. This made investigators think that Saul was not only guilty, but was probably attempting to escape now that they were onto it. And with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of comic books potentially in his trunk, Saul could very much just disappear forever. But fortunately, after just 2 hours of searching, officers managed to arrest Saul in his car, seemingly attempting to flee. But Saul actually claimed that he was on his way to the police station, but this was hard to believe considering that the officers found a large bag of rare comic books in his trunk, just like what the tipster said. So at the end, Larry managed to get most of his comics back. But one mystery remained. How exactly did Saul break into Larry's unit without being detected? Did he really get help by someone working in the facility? And this mystery was why Judge Kevin Russo offered Saul a bargain to reduce the sentence in exchange for revealing how he committed the crime. This could very much reduce Saul's sentence to 2 years instead of up to 40, while the investigation could also arrest potential accomplices, and CubeSmart could discover flaws in their security. However, Saul rejected the plea bargain and instead pleaded guilty to first-degree larceny and conspiracy to commit first-degree larceny. He was given a suspended sentence of 10 years, which he could avoid if he served 2 years in prison plus 5 years on probation. James Sr. and James Jr. got their charges dropped after accepting an undisclosed plea deal. This next Marvel fan, however, would discover that a movie theater was not a safe place to be in.
A movie theater shooting at Phipps Plaza in Buckhead. Police are still trying to track down the shooter.
Monday, December 20th, 2021. Moviegoers piled into the AMC Theater in Atlanta, Georgia to watch the much-awaited Spider-Man No Way Home, the third installment of the Tom Holland-led movie that just hit the theaters 3 days ago. And of course, the
What the fuck? Oh shit. My audio went out. It just gave up somehow. Hold up. Hold on, yo. Alright, hold on. Because I ain't gonna lie, randomly, I don't know why it happened. What happened? Just give me a minute. Alright.
People were
Alright, we back.
watching their movie and eating popcorn, a different sound rang across the theater. The audience was initially left confused. The theater's speakers had still been blasting, leaving them wondering if the sound was from the movie. But then a scream followed, and people realized that the sound came from the enclosed space that they were in at the very moment. And people began rushing out of the theater, with one of them recording the events immediately.
Somebody just started shooting in the movie theater, cuz I'm sitting there watching Spider-Man.
This was because the first sound, the one before the scream, was a gunshot within the theater. A real firearm had been triggered, and no one knew if there would be more. Without a doubt, many in the audience feared for their lives. Shootings within movie theaters weren't new at this point. There was already a mass attack during a midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises Back in 2012 that killed 12 people. Then there was a similar attack during a showing of the film Trainwreck in 2015 that killed 2 people before the gunman switched the firearm on himself. In fact, there was another shooting just months before in another AMC theater just 30 minutes from the screening of No Way Home. And now it was happening again. But how did the gunman actually get there? And why was this happening again? Security footage actually captured the suspect arriving at the theater wearing a dark coat and a white hoodie that kept his face hidden from the cameras. He was acting normal, and with him was a woman who was likely a witness. The suspect was then caught fleeing from the scene after the shooting, and the car that they used was also captured by cameras in the parking lot. Unfortunately, the footage was too blurry to actually see the license plate. Police were immediately called to the scene, and within minutes they confirmed that the gunman had already left. However, the shooting had injured a 24-year-old man named Raquan Cantrell Oti, who was shot in the abdomen while his date Miranda Renee Ross was sitting next to him. According to Amanda,
a man had approached them since her date, Raquan, was sitting in his assigned seat. An argument broke out, and the gunman reacted by retrieving his handgun.
Miranda immediately rushed out upon seeing the firearm, and when she looked back, Raquan had already been shot. Now he was rushed to the hospital.
Damn.
The victim was in stable condition when paramedics took him to the hospital.
While the other civilians were safe and gave their statements to the police.
Bro.
It's crazy. There's a movie theater. Why would they shoot someone at the movie theater?
But fortunately for Raquan, he survived after receiving medical attention. So now the focus quickly switched to finding the shooter. Media outlets showed the theater's security footage of the gunman and his companion. But since they both had their faces hidden throughout the security footage, it was difficult to track them. And shockingly, despite the numerous footage of the suspects and their car, no arrest has been made in this case. The shooter, as of making this video, is still at large. The only justice Raquan can go after was suing American Multi-Cinema, the owner of the AMC theater where the incident happened. And according to court documents, he believes that the theater lacked security measures despite another shooting happening in a nearby theater just months before he was shot. He intended to hold the company accountable. And sadly, this wasn't Marvel's course of action when one of their actors committed a disturbing crime against a fan.
He told me that he can't trust me, and the only way he can trust me again is if I hop on a video chat and send to him.
What?
When the show Ms. Marvel dropped on Disney Plus, the audience watched bright-eyed Kamala Khan get her wishes granted when she discovered her superpowers. This coming-of-age story about an Avengers fan turning into a potential young Avenger had a wide supporting cast, including Kamala's father, Yusuf, played by Indian actor Mohan Kapoor. However, mere months after the Disney Plus show started streaming, one social media post revealed a dark secret. The actor playing Ms. Marvel's father, Mohan, was called out over a post on X, accusing him of attempting to get a little too close with a person who isn't even allowed to vote yet. The accuser, whom we'll call Emma, as her name is kept secret, claimed that she was when she befriended Indian actress Ashin Kaur, whom she was a fan of. Ashin would later connect her with her husband, Mohan, and at first the younger person looked up to and confided with the couple like they were her second parents. But then, just when she turned a year older, Mohan began acting differently.
We constantly talked until I noticed that he started flirting with me. Then Mohan sent explicit images of himself to me. He apologized and was depressed, but he continued to harass me, said things like how he was in love with me, wanted me to grow up to be with him, and can't wait for me to get older so I can sleep with him.
The unwanted attention even made Emma want to leave the planet, and yet when she told Mohan how his actions were affecting her, the actor turned the tables and blamed her for being untrustworthy, and he then demanded Emma to send him private things to regain his trust. With Mohan not showing any guilt over what he was doing, Emma went to his wife instead. But instead of protecting the younger person, Ashin had allegedly blamed the incidents on Emma, since she threw baggage at them, likely referencing the days when she confided in them about her life. Now, as expected with stories like this, the accusations outraged the fans, but at the time of this writing, Mohan still has been charged for the inexcusable behavior. Yet what makes things even worse was that despite the allegations coming out in 2022, Disney and Marvel have kept the actor in succeeding projects. Mohan appeared again as Yusuf Khan in the 2023 film The Marvels, and more recently he appeared in the Disney Plus reboot series Daredevil, Born Again in 2025. Fans believe that he should have at least been recast or his character taken out of the scripts. Instead,
I didn't see that.
Disney, Marvel, and
I-
Moore
well,
himself
I
have yet to
watched
make a
the
public
Daredevil Born
statement
Again.
about the accusations and
But
have
I
turned
didn't
a
know he
blind eye
was in,
from it. Now people might think that Marvel and Disney are
Daredevil.
keeping Mohan around since it's difficult to recast him or remove his character completely from the MCU. But this isn't even the case, since the next two actors were far more influential to their cinematic universe and were still fired for their disturbing actions.
Miller's accuser spoke to the Daily Beast anonymously and said the actor both physically and assaulted her while they were both attending George Washington University.
Stand-up comedian TJ Miller seemed to be the perfect actor to play
I know this
Deadpool's
dude.
sidekick Weasel. His comedic chemistry with Ryan Reynolds worked on screen, so it was expected that he'd be playing the role throughout Deadpool's cinematic journey. However, this wasn't the case. Months after the first Deadpool movie was enjoyed in theaters, TJ made headlines after he attacked an Uber driver over an argument about politics. On December 9th, 2016, he made a $20,000 bail and soon reached a settlement with the driver to avoid charges. But this wasn't even the beginning of his history of violence. While playing the comedic Weasel on screen, TJ was already hiding a much darker secret, one that was about to derail his entire life. By late 2017, around the time TJ had already finished filming his scenes for the Deadpool 2 movie, the hashtag #MeToo movement encouraged an anonymous woman whom we'll call Sarah to reveal TJ's dark past. Sarah claimed that she dated TJ in 2001 while they were attending school at George Washington University. However, it was this relationship that allowed TJ to do something horrifying to her.
See that brand new Hyundai Santa Fe?
What?
I only paid. Finish this bucket on your own.
Enjoy your new car.
Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Lease an all-wheel drive Hyundai Palisade SE for $329
See,
a
now,
month.
why
or
will you
get
be up there?
3.99% APR
See,
for
why
60
will you
months.
be up
Hurry
there
in.
and you acting so
At
good and
IHG
shit?
Hotels and
Or
Resorts,
when you get
you can
alright,
explore the neighborhood.
why doesn't when you're up there and
Live like a
shit,
local.
somebody always gotta trying to bring her down by your past?
Plunge into a long
She has to be lying.
IHG's 20
Or
hotel brands.
she's
You
for real.
guessed how you guessed.
There's no way she gonna came out of nowhere now
Consolation prize
and tell this nigga about his past.
the prize.
There's no way. A girl named Emma that we don't even know randomly came out and started talking about this nigga's past.
That's your thing.
Like, come on, bro.
Tried a lot of things without
Gotta be
asking me,
lying.
and at no point asked me if I was alright. He choked me, and I kept staring at his face, hoping he would
What?
see that I was afraid, and then he would stop. I couldn't say anything.
She also alleged that TJ shook her violently and punched her, leaving her with a fractured tooth and a bloodied up lip. This all happened after
Whoa.
Sarah had been drinking, so at first she couldn't bring herself at the time to believe that it happened.
It was me not wanting it to be true.
With her in denial, she continued the relationship, which led to the second, more violent event.
We started to fool around, and very early in that, he put his hands around my throat and closed them, and I couldn't breathe. I was genuinely terrified and completely surprised.
Her roommates had heard her struggling, so they went to check on her and likely saved her life as TJ released her to talk to them. But still confused, Sarah assured them that she was fine. This of course was another mistake. After her roommates left, Sarah said,
He put me back to bed, and more things happened.
now the other things that happened are acts that we cannot say on YouTube. But her statements were enough for Daily Beast reporter Asuan Subsang to dig deeper into the incident. Asuan eventually uncovered school records and spoke to people who were studying there at the time, and some testified that they heard violent thuds from Sarah's room at the alleged time of the incident, and would later see Sarah with bruises. Sarah's ex-boyfriend also confirmed that she eventually filed a complaint against TJ to the school, saying,
I had a romantic relationship with her, and she spoke with me about TJ Miller attacking her. She was engaged in student conduct proceedings regarding the attack, and I remember the emotional toll that it and the subsequent conduct hearing placed on her.
Asuan then attempted to get information about the student conduct hearing against TJ, but the documents of course were sealed. Instead, witnesses to the proceedings claimed that TJ was expelled after he graduated, and despite the waves of testimonies against him, TJ still insisted that this incident wasn't true. But the damage was already done, and since he'd already filmed the scenes for Deadpool 2 at this point, witnesses to the proceedings claimed that TJ was expelled after he graduated, and despite the waves of testimonies against him, TJ still insisted that this incident wasn't true. But the damage was already done, and since he'd already filmed the scenes for Deadpool 2 at this point, it became his last appearance as Weasel. Now, not only did he lose his role in the MCU, he was also replaced mid-production in DreamWorks' How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. As if to bite back after getting fired, TJ then began lashing out at his co-star Ryan Reynolds, saying,
I got along with him a lot better on the first Deadpool because he wasn't a huge movie star. We had a really weird moment on Deadpool where he said, let's do one more take. And then as the character, he was horrifically mean to me as if I'm Weasel. So he was like, you know what's great about you, Weasel? You're not the star, but you do just enough exposition so that it's fun. And then we can leave and get back to the real movie.
Likely in an attempt to save face, TJ also said,
I would not have done Deadpool 3 if they came to me and were like, we want you to do Deadpool 3 and we're going to pay you twice as much.
Now, fans were understandably enraged about his comments, and if they think TJ couldn't get any lower, his next actions proved them wrong.
Right now, Amtrak,
Wow.
the MTA, and Westport police continue to investigate a bomb threat on an Amtrak train. More than 200 passengers and crew members were evacuated at the Greens Farm station in Westport around 7 last night.
Losing his roles in two major film franchises likely caused TJ to go into a downward spiral, so when he boarded an Amtrak train from Washington DC bound for New York, his mind might have gone into panic mode. Suddenly, police received a call from TJ claiming that a woman in his train was carrying a bomb with her, and so immediately over 200 passengers were evacuated and officers were sent to investigate the scene. Hundreds of people feared for their lives. X, while TJ told the police that the woman in question
kept checking her bag without taking anything out
and seemed to want to get off the train without it.
I'm worried for everyone on the train. Someone has to check that lady out.
However, officers soon noticed that TJ was slurring his words, and a search concluded that there was no bomb in the train, and witnesses claimed that they've seen TJ drinking multiple drinks in the train and had hostile exchanges with a female passenger. Because of this, people believed that the drunk actor just wanted to get the woman he argued with in trouble, and so TJ was actually arrested for making a fake bomb threat. He made a $100,000 bail, and eventually charges were dropped, as prosecutors agreed that the actor wasn't of sound mind at the time due to a previous brain surgery. TJ also promised to pay the expenses for the bogus bomb threat, and while it was easy to remove an MCU sidekick from the franchise, the next actor had such a big role that when the stories of his crimes broke out, Marvel went into a complete panic mode.
Verdict in the case of Hollywood star Jonathan Majors. A jury has found him guilty of some charges in this New York criminal case.
It's crazy because it wasn't true.
From a domestic incident with his former girlfriend.
And he still got
After
fired
the Mad
from
Titan
Marvel.
Thanos was defeated at the end of Avengers Endgame, fans were eager to hear who would be the next big villain in the MCU. And when the Disney Plus show Loki came out, everyone went crazy over the reveal of He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors. And comic book fans immediately figured out that He Who Remains was a variant of the time manipulator Kang the Conqueror. It made sense that Kang, who can control and destroy entire timelines, would become the next big villain. And in Comic-Con 2022, Marvel confirmed this by announcing Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, set for May 2nd, 2025. But things didn't go as planned. While Jonathan was praised for his portrayal of Kang, his personal life took a surprising turn that derailed Marvel Studios' plans for the next couple of years. On March 25th, 2023, less than a year after the Kang Dynasty announcement, Jonathan called 911 to get help for his ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari.
911, you need police, fire, medical.
She's unconscious.
Okay.
She's naked from the bottom down. She's my ex-partner. We broke up, I came back.
Officers found Grace with a few broken fingers and a cut on her ear, which she claimed were the result of Jonathan beating her. And security footage from earlier that day were also found, showing Jonathan lifting Grace and throwing her into a vehicle. The two would then come out of the vehicle with Grace chasing Jonathan, who pushed her away. The actor was immediately arrested. And when with the MCU began to crumble. While Jonathan faced charges of assault and harassment, Marvel Studios panicked as the next Cinematic Phases villain could soon be in prison. He had just appeared in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where they teased the numerous Kang variants at the end. He also had a major role as another Kang variant in Loki Season 2 later that year. That's years of story building that might end up going to waste. And the court hearings for Jonathan's case didn't do him any favors either. While on the stand, Grace testified that the fight began when she noticed another woman texting her boyfriend, saying,
"Oh, I wish I was kissing you."
And she added that as they argued over the text, Jonathan hit her on the back of the head, which caused a wound to her ear, then twisted her arm, which resulted in the broken fingers. She also revealed a recording of Jonathan months before the incident.
How dare you come home drunk and disturb the peace of our house? I would like to get to the point. My temper, my travel, blah, all that said, right? And I'm not saying I'm a great man. A great man.
Along with the recording, Grace revealed text messages between them from September 2022. She alleged that these messages were after Jonathan had hit her, and he was encouraging her from going to the hospital, saying,
"I fear you have no perspective of what could happen if you go to the hospital. They will ask you questions, and as I don't think you actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation, even if you do lie and they suspect something."
And Grace replied,
"I will tell the doctor I bumped my head. Why would I want to tell them what really happened when it's clear that I want to be with you?"
This painted the actor as having a history of violence and aggression, and so the jury found Jonathan guilty on 2 misdemeanor counts of harassment and assault in December of 2023, and not long after the verdict, Marvel Studios officially announced that they were cutting ties with Kang's actor. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige would also later claim that even before Jonathan's arrest, they were already considering changing their main villain.
We started to realize that Kang wasn't big enough, wasn't Thanos, and that there was only one character that could beat that, because he was dead in the comics for decades and decades.
Fans, however, weren't convinced that removing Kang was already planned, since Quantumania obviously was released 1 month before Jonathan was arrested, and the end credit scene clearly showed that the counts of Kangs were being set up as major characters in future films. Then Avengers Doomsday was announced to replace Kang Dynasty, and former Iron Man actor and fan favorite Robert Downey Jr. was revealed to be cast as Dr. Doom. This, however, left fans divided, with Reddit discussions saying,
"As much as I love RDJ and I'm sure he'll give a great performance, they will be hard-pressed to come up with a reason for the casting that doesn't smell of It feels like it's a distraction from something bigger."
And while Marvel Studios attempts to cover up this major controversy, their animated studios are also in hot water.
What more concerning is that they're a smear campaign designed to discredit my credibility in order to cover up egregious, prejudicial misconduct, stretching from select crew members on X-Men 97 all the way to the top of Marvel Studios.
Like many kids in the 90s, Bo the Mayo grew up watching X-Men the animated series, until it was cancelled in 1997. His love for the larger-than-life stories, like in comic books, is what inspired him to become a screenwriter, fulfilling his dream to work on projects like Netflix The Witcher, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Marvel's Moon Knight. He was even considered to write the upcoming Blade movie, and almost 30 years after watching the X-Men series, he was actually tapped to be the writer and executive producer of the series' reboot, named X-Men 97. But just when X-Men 97 was about to premiere in March of 2024, Bo was suddenly fired by Marvel and wasn't even allowed to attend the show's events. This came as a shock, since not only his work in X-Men 97 was well received by fans, he'd also worked on the show's second season and was building up the storyline for the third. Both Marvel and Bo remained silent about this event for months. That was until August of 2024, when the writer announced to his fans that Marvel planned to completely erase him from the animated series he'd worked so hard on. Over on X, Bo reposted a drawing of himself as the character Cyclops. The image was originally posted on June 4th of that year as the writer's way of celebrating Pride, but in the comment section he added,
"Marvel sent a letter notifying me that they stripped my season 2 credits due to the post. Sadly, this is the latest in a troubling pattern I suffered through while working on X-Men 97 and Blade."
And just days before, the X-Men series he helped create was nominated for the Best Animated Series in the Emmy Awards. However, Bo revealed that
Marvel Disney has not reached out to arrange my attendance to the Emmys for the show I created.
His words implied that Marvel and Disney were against him for being open, and he hinted that this was only part of their troubling behavior, adding that he had more to reveal later on. And of course, because of this, fans were quick to show support to the writer, but his support would die out just as quickly. Mere hours after the post, Marvel revealed to news outlets that Bo was actually fired prior to X-Men 97's premiere due to egregious misconduct. And unsurprisingly, this created a buzz, with people questioning who was actually telling the truth now. So entertainment journalist Jeff Snyder, to dig into this he said they said drama, and the story he uncovered left the community even more divided. Based on statements he allegedly collected, Jeff revealed that Bo was sending pictures of himself with very little clothing while doing suggestive hero poses to younger male co-workers and telling them to use his images as inspiration for the X-Men series. Now, other co-workers had told him to stop, but the former Marvel scribes just continued spreading such photos. On top of that, he was also reported to repeatedly give unwanted touches to an assistant while being physically and emotionally aggressive to his staff. And Jeff also claimed that this was the same behavior that got him fired from Netflix's The Witcher series. Now, Bo's attorney Brian Friedman denied the accusations and insisted that none of this was ever reported to Marvel Animation's HR department. He also claimed that Bo was singled out due to being one of their most successful creators despite his skin color and identity. And Brian further added that they were challenging the writer's non-disclosure agreement with Disney and Marvel, calling the contract illegal to prevent the company's image as a family-friendly studio from being exposed as a lie. But Bo would then post a video to drop bombshells against Disney and Marvel.
These allegations of egregious misconduct are false. But more concerning is that they're a smear campaign designed to discredit my credibility in order to cover up egregious, prejudicial misconduct, stretching from select crew members on X-Men 97 all the way to the top of Marvel Studios. Back when I was in high school, we called this gossip.
According to Bo, this all started because he fought back against executives who wanted to change storylines, while he wished to remain loyal to the source material of the comic books and the 90s animated show. This disobedience is where the rumor of him intimidating staff started. To him, the rumor was only weaponized due to his muscular physique and his skin color. He then went on to accuse Marvel producers of suspicious behavior themselves, including one who got too close with an assistant and another two who showed his son a photo of Bo that was meant for dating apps. The final straw was when Bo was working with a fellow dark-skinned creative and a producer joked about cracking a whip at them. Bo allegedly reported all of these, but he revealed that
in return, I was removed from the project in the middle of moving to Atlanta for production, and then had my role on season 2 of X-Men 97 aggressively marginalized.
Bo also claimed that he had the receipts and eyewitnesses to back up his claims, and rather than dump them on the internet, he would prefer to relay them to authorities at Marvel and Disney,
so that those responsible are able to receive what I did not, a full and fair investigation away from the public eye.
Fans, however, weren't convinced. The rumors that similar behavior was what got him fired from the Witcher series. People were now left wondering if he was only accusing Marvel and Disney of questionable behavior to divert the story from him. So far, the feud between Marvel and Bo is still ongoing. His civil lawsuit against Marvel's NDA is still pending, so we can just wait and see what will happen next. This next Marvel creator, however, not only lost his reputation, but also something else more permanent.
He has never ever been in trouble. Ever in his 40 years of living. I'll tell you this, he's totally innocent.
Ed Piskor was another creator for the X-Men franchise, particularly the comic book series known as Grand Design, which he practically worked on by himself. Beyond Marvel, Ed was also known for his work on the comic series Hip Hop Family Tree, Red Room, and Switchblade Shorties. He also co-hosted a Comic Book Insider YouTube channel called Cartoonist Keyfade with fellow creator Jim Rush. Overall, Ed became one of the prominent names in the modern comic industry, only for his legacy to be tarnished in a matter of days. Aspiring artist Molly Dwyer posted a series of screenshots on March 23, 2024, containing text messages between her as his and the 40-year-old comic book artist. According to Molly, Ed called her after she liked one of his posts, and he first complimented the art she posted, and then went on to ask,
"Are you 18 or 18? I'm gonna be so mad if you say because this crushes me at that age."
He even called her nicknames like Naughty Girl, and told her,
"I feel like you'd be a good partner in crime. You're not a snitch, are you? If we robbed some banks, you wouldn't rat me out, would you?"
And Molly answered,
"I wouldn't dream of it."
To which Ed replied,
"Good girl, you give the correct answers."
In the post, Molly added,
"I find nothing normal or friendly about a 40-year-old man asking a high school girl about her classes, calling her a good girl or naughty girl, asking her to come visit him. This is not a cancellation of Ed Piskor. I'm just telling you the truth about this person. The truth a lot of other cartoonists are aware of. Switchblade shorties is disturbing, coming from a creep who likes small humans."
And the following day, another woman, Molly Wright, went online to report her experiences with Ed, saying,
"I reached out to Ed, and he eagerly invited me over. We had plenty of fun and discussed animation and comics. This was until he asked me to do something to him in exchange for his agent's number. He then asked me to join him for an open relationship, so that if I wanted to eat, I'd be free to do so. I've recently learned that he was attempting to line up some of those women at the time, and guess what? Today I learned that some of them were from a more recent generation."
And these stories came at such a bad time for Ed, as he was set to have an exhibit in the 707 Penn Gallery the following week. Now, the exhibit was postponed indefinitely because of the accusations. Well, Ed turned off the comments on his Instagram to avoid people flooding him about this. Despite this, these stories opened the floodgates, with people over on Reddit sharing their creepy experiences with Ed. One claimed that the artist
slid into my DMs, initially complimented my work, then my appearance, before eventually soliciting clothes, images, and becoming increasingly demanding that I perform services.
Another Redditor shared that,
"Even though I was dating a friend of his at the time, I knew Ed. He would say creepy stuff to me and my female peers on the regular. He would specifically highlight how he chooses not to drink while frequenting bars with young women in the scene."
As more and more stories popped up online, his art exhibit was completely cancelled, along with a $75,000 deal with Abrams Publishing for his Switchblade Shorties comic books. Jim, his co-host on the YouTube channel Cartoonist Kayfabe, also announced that he was ending his connection with Ed due to his allegations. And so in a matter of days, Ed went from having multiple projects going on and being one of the most respected comic artists of his generation to having nothing. And just when things couldn't get any worse for him, a news report sent Ed over the edge. On March 27, 2024, WTAE TV Pittsburgh, a local news station, attempted to get a statement from Ed about the accusations. But when they couldn't reach him, they instead went to his parents' house, where Ed's father adamantly defended his son.
He has never ever been in trouble. Ever in his 40 years of living. I'll tell you this, he's totally innocent.
But what the news crew failed to do was hide the house number of Ed's parents' home, even mentioning in the report where the house was located, which ultimately led Ed's parents to being doxxed on national TV, and with his parents not only getting involved in the controversy, but also potentially
I swear, bro, I've been thinking that something be happening.
My name.
Yo. Bro.
Is Frankenstein.
What do you want with a dead girl?
I want the same thing everyone else wants.
This ad is, bro.
Rated R.
This ad is
Mark
long as
6.
shit.
The beauty of hardy fiber cement siding speaks for itself, while its strength also makes a statement. Have the home neighbors want with the #1 brand of siding. James Hardie, what the best are made of.
There's trips you gotta take, and the ones you wanna take, and with new Save Your Way, well, partner.
Pop it and top it with Kraft Parmesan cheese.
Potentially being in danger from outraged fans who saw their home on TV, Ed finally took matters into his own hands. On April 1st, 2024, just a week after the first post that ruined his name appeared, Ed took to Facebook to post his side of the story, and the post linked to a Google Doc simply titled Facebook Note. He began saying,
"I'm so sorry for being so stupid. I definitely should have never talked with Molly D. The language and optics look real dumb at best, but I promise my innocence. Especially out of context, it looks horrible. It was at the height of the lockdowns with no end in sight, and I was alone through most of it. I was just happy to have the internet to talk to people with common interests. There was no way I'd have a 18-year-old stay at my place. Maybe not 18 even. I was forward projecting to some unknown future when lockdowns were finished, and we could see people again."
While he seemed apologetic about his interaction with Molly Dwyer, he denied everything that the other Molly Wright, said. In fact, he called her actions criminal and asked his family to file a lawsuit against her. He claimed,
"I never had anyone lined up for an open relationship with her. I was never interested in a relationship with her. We had relations twice, and she initiated both times. We quit hanging out during lockdown, but kept in touch here and there, and I thought things ended naturally. She's a petty woman scorned, punitive and false. My house was burning, and she threw gasoline on it. Reputation destruction is her form of of aggression, and there were very real consequences.
And as people went on to read Ed's lengthy Facebook note, names from the news sites and the comic book industry popped up, with the shamed artist calling them out for contributing to his online bullying, and thus adding to his already declining mental health and destroyed reputation. The post also showed him entrusting his business partner and his co-host, Jim, to protect his intellectual properties, and to post unlisted videos on the channel once the dust settles, so the artistic work won't go to waste. Now, readers of his note were already forming the outcome of his letter due to these specific requests, and his last message confirmed what they feared.
I was murdered by internet bullies, massive amounts of them. Some of you out there absolutely contributed to my death as you were entertaining yourself with gossip. I wasn't AI, I was a real human being. You chipped little bits of my self-esteem away all week until I was vaporized.
And Ed was actually found lifeless in his Pennsylvania home hours after his final post. His family announced a tragic end the same day, but the official cause of death and other details were kept from the public. All we know is that the hate and controversy that began mere days before had pushed the comic book artist to leave the world. And suddenly the online community went from lashing out against Ed to remembering him and speaking out against online bullying. Sadly, this change in mindset was a little too late. This next story is also of personal struggles coming out too late. This time the casualties were far greater.
I don't think it would have taken too much at this point in time. He'd expressed criticism openly of his mother for the first time, so I think this was something that was coming. It was not very far off, and if it wouldn't have happened on this day, it probably would have happened not too long afterwards.
The Wolverine killer.
21-year-old Jed Allen was a groundskeeper for Didcot Town Council and Oxford University Parks. On social media, however, he's known as Mr. Meat Tank, a bodybuilder who was an avid fan of comic books, video games, and horror movies. His favorite character was known to be the short-tempered mutant Wolverine, whom he based his hairstyle on, copying even the character's sideburns. He would post photos of himself with blades between his fingers to mimic Wolverine's claws, along with other posts with him carrying weapons. And despite the seemingly intimidating images on social media, Jed's friends knew him as a kind person and a responsible big brother to his sister Darren. And of course, he was also a frequent gym goer, making it seem like he had a stable life. To those very close to him, however, knew that this was far from the truth. Jed would occasionally post about his troubles and confide in his friends about struggles at home. His mother, Janet, always had a problem with misusing medicines and alcohol, so much so that she once even crashed a car while intoxicated. This led to Janet losing custody of Jed's two younger half-siblings, leaving him alone to grow up watching his mother spiral out of control. Now things seemed to get better when Janet married Philip, and together they had Darren. But what seemed like the start of a happy family ended again when both parents started using substances. And as if this wasn't enough, Jed himself started spiraling as well, and told his friends that he discovered a dark family secret, though he didn't tell them what it was. Then on May 23rd, 2015, Jed spent the afternoon with friends at a pub. He parted ways with them like he normally would on any other day. But that night, between 6 to 7 in the evening, 7 of his friends would receive troubling text messages. The messages hinted that he'd done something bad, and that his dog, Ted Lee, deserved better. More alarmingly, one text said,
I know what I've done is wrong, but I love you all, and I will soon be in a better place. I need your help. I need you to call the police.
His friends feared that Jed was about to attack himself, so they rushed to his family home and found the worst possible thing. Jed's mother, Janet, his stepfather, Philip, and his half-sister, Darren, had all passed away from multiple stab wounds. The entire house was a crime scene, and Jed was nowhere to be found. The brutality of the scene was only made more devastating when Jed's friends found a red message on a wall saying,
I'm sorry, I know the truth. I don't want it for me and my family. This is the end.
Immediately the police were called, and the autopsy soon concluded that all 3 victims were attacked using the same hunting knife that Jed owned. All of them also had defensive wounds, suggesting that the victims, including Darren, tried to fight for their lives before their tragic ends. These shocking details prompted a manhunt for Jed, since police believed he was dangerous, and saw over 100 officers search for the suspect, scouring the parks that the groundskeeper worked in. Now CCTV footage was later discovered. It showed Jed calmly buying water from a convenience store at an Oxford train station, then of him walking through the city mere moments before his family's bodies were discovered. And as the manhunt stretched, news outlets began calling him the Wolverine Killer, after discovering his Instagram account that showed his fascination with the comic book character. Meanwhile, people were left wondering what pushed Jed to commit the crimes, only to soon discover that the man had taken his motives to the grave. After a 30-hour search, Jed was discovered to have used a rope to leave this world too, in a wooden area near Marston Ferry Road. And a toxicology report showed that he wasn't under the influence of anything at the time of his death, so Jed had consciously left this world. With the killer found now, people were still left wondering what caused the events on the night of May 23rd. Earlier that day, for example, Jed didn't show any kind of signs that he was planning out the crime, and even if he didn't get along with his stepfather and his mother, friends knew that he adored his little sister, so why did he attack her as well? A former neighbor, Jane Illott, shared that Janet was the troubled mother even when her oldest son was just a boy. In fact, Jed, who would be around 11 years old at the time, had asked Jane for help whenever his mother was having a bad day, and that Jed ended up taking the responsibility to care for her mother and his siblings at such a young age. When his siblings then were taken away from him, Jed had allegedly taken it too hard, feeling guilty that he couldn't protect his siblings. Now in 2012, he actually started seeing a therapist who put him under medication for his depression, although the therapist quickly saw him doing better. But Jed was most likely just hiding his troubles, and his mental health still continued to decline. Given this history, experts believe that Jed might have had a psychotic break that led to this crime. Another theory was that Jed didn't want to repeat the cycle of his family falling apart due to his mother's dependency, while others wondered if the man had only meant to hurt Philip, but couldn't bear the idea of his mother mother and his sister being traumatized by his actions, so he chose to end their lives as well. Ultimately, we may never know why Jet committed the crime, and what he meant when he told his friends that he discovered a dark family secret. However, experts did believe that his fascination over Wolverine was an outlet, as he saw the mutant as a heroic figure despite his rage. However, in contrast, this next Marvel fanatic committed an act of violence for the strangest reason.
Reports also heard that she could have literally died. I mean, one of the stab wounds was literally centimeters away from the main artery in her neck.
When Marvel Comics introduced Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, fans were shocked at how much he contrasted the usual comic book heroes. While others would fight crime through mostly lawful means, the Punisher was an anti-hero who was willing to deal with criminals using illegal and morally questionable action. This made him stand out and even became a fan favorite for fans who enjoyed some gritty violence. One of these fans was Connor Deegan, who cosplayed the Punisher during comic conventions. However, Connor didn't only want to look like the Punisher, he wanted to be him, and this wish resulted in a shocking crime. On February 17th, 2020, Connor was hanging out with some friends, including Amber Raven, who recently broke up with him. Amber decided to head home, but needed help in finding the nearest train station, and so Connor offered to accompany her, and against her better judgment, she said yes. As they crossed Little Ilford Park in Newham, Connor lured Amber into one of the public bathrooms, and there he launched a horrific attack. Using a large combat knife, Connor stabbed the woman repeatedly on the stomach and neck. Then he stared down at her motionless body before finally leaving her on the bathroom floor. Now no one knows where Connor went or what he did after leaving the park, but 6 hours after the attack, Connor was found by the police, still wearing his blood-soaked clothes and carrying a bag, and in the bag was a bloodied combat knife along with a baklava, black gloves, and a pocket knife. These showed that his crime was planned all along, and police also learned that earlier that day, Connor mentioned to people how he wanted to put Amber in a chokehold so he could become the real Punisher. He truly believed that attacking and killing the woman who ended her fling with him would turn him into a sort of Marvel anti-hero, and so this was a clear that Connor was right in the head. But what he didn't know at the time was that he already failed his imaginary task. Amber, who suffered several life-threatening wounds, was apparently still alive after Connor left the bathroom. In fact, she was smart enough to pretend to be dead to convince her attacker to leave. And once Connor was gone, she crawled her way to a nearby home. Although she was in excruciating pain and lost a lot of blood, Amber bravely fought for her life and managed to reach a house to ask for help. And the residents who found her immediately called for help. In an interview, they said,
"The knife wound was 10 millimeters from the main artery in her neck. The paramedics said if it wasn't for us, she would be dead."
And so once properly stable, Amber would give her testimony to the police. And with her DNA all over his bloodied knife and her clothes, this was enough to seal Connor's fate. Meanwhile, as detectives dug deeper into his story, things sounded even darker. According to Amber, she ended her fling with Connor after he suddenly acted creepy, mere weeks after they started the relationship. And when she decided to break things off, Connor was adamant about keeping the relationship, saying
he wouldn't take no for an answer.
Then on the day of the attack, while the two were with their friends, Amber claimed that Connor kept stroking her hair and hugging her as if they were still together. And this is why she decided to go home early. But unfortunately, she accepted Connor's offer to walk her to the station. Detectives also learned from text messages that Connor was planning on building his own weapons and body armor, as if to mimic his favorite Marvel character. He suggested that the Punisher wannabe could have attempted a more gruesome crime if he had been caught. In the attempt, Connor pleaded guilty to attempted murder and possession of an offensive weapon. He's been sentenced to 9 years and 4 months in prison. As for Amber, she recovered from multiple stab wounds but still bears the scars of the attack. Understandably, she's still traumatized by the event and has experienced panic attacks. Meanwhile, this next story also involved fans of the Punisher, but this time it's a group of people who use their authority to destroy someone's life.
I still got to deal with PTSD. I still got to take medication on and off my life. I'm not the same guy I was before.
See that brand new Hyundai Santa Fe? Yeah.
I only paid.
Finish this bucket on your own.
Enjoy your new car.
The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Lease an all-wheel drive Hyundai Kona SE for $169 a month, or get 3.49% APR for 60 months. Hurry in.
Chicken Al Pastor is back at Chipotle, where fire meets flavor.
Another
Here
long,
for a limited time. Chipotle, for real.
long ad.
In the NHL,
Lord.
silver isn't a consolation prize. It is the prize.
The playoff push begins as Sweden's Erik Karlsson leads the Penguins against USA's JT Miller and the Rangers. And then USA's Charlie McAvoy and Czechia's David Pastrnak and the Bruins go up against the Flyers.
The NHL is back!
Saturday on ABC.
You know what challenge really takes a toll on you? Figuring out what actually works style-wise in your 50s. So I tried Stitch Fix Vision.
Frank Chu Jr. worked as a truck loader at a medical supply company, but also moonlighted as an entertainer for bachelorette parties to make ends meet. His friend Lovell Harris helped him out in his side job by carrying and preparing his equipment. On the night of October 23, 2004, Frank was hired to perform at a party attended by Kirsten and Tonissen and Katie Brown. Now after they did their whole gig and the celebration was over, Frank and Lovell had befriended some of the partygoers and went to a bar with them to extend the evening. And so they spent time together past midnight on October 24. Kirsten and Katie then invited Frank and Lovell to a housewarming party that that they were going to, and unfortunately for them, the men said yes. The four of them arrived at the housewarming party that was hosted by Andrew Spangler, a Milwaukee police officer, at around 2:30 in the morning. Among his guests were his fellow officers and friends, and because Frank and Lowell were of a different skin color, seeing that the alcohol-filled party comprised mostly of white people made them a bit uncomfortable. This awkwardness was heightened when Katie and Kirsten left the two men for a few minutes, and then returned to find them claiming that they'd heard unsavory comments from the already intoxicated guests. Because of this, the four then decided to leave the party, mere minutes after arriving, and this was the second big mistake they made that evening. Just when the group was getting into Kirsten's truck to leave, 10 men suddenly burst out of the house and marched towards them. Among the men were Milwaukee officers Andrew Spangler, John Barlett, Daniel Mazarik, Ryan Packard, and Ryan Lemke, John Closing, and Joseph Stromek. Apparently, moments after the group left, Andrew noticed that his wallet was missing, and the wallet contained his police badge, so it made him panic. And because Frank and Lowell, whom he didn't know, had just left before he noticed the wallet missing, he jumped to conclusions and decided that they'd stolen it and left to escape. Frank and Lowell denied the accusations, but the group was unconvinced and started threatening them, even using racial slurs against the men, and vandalized Kirsten's truck. Now the group inside the vehicle desperately kept themselves locked inside and called for help, but ultimately the men were able to drag them out of the vehicle one by one. The off-duty officers then began searching for the wallet inside the vehicle and amongst the terrified guests, and even though they didn't find any signs that they'd taken the item, the men proceeded to commit one of the most brutal crimes the city would know. The men began beating Frank and Lowell, forcing them to confess to a crime that they didn't even commit. Lowell managed to escape after receiving a cut on his face, but Frank was cornered. The women immediately called 911, and though some of the off-duty officers tried to threaten them against calling for help, cops were dispatched to the scene by 3 a.m. But despite this, the violence still didn't stop. The officers who arrived at the scene, Joseph Schabel and Nicole Martinez, knew the men who were committing the violence. And in fact, Joseph Schabel even helped in beating Frank after hearing that he might have stolen his colleague's badge. And so even calling the police didn't help at all. Frank suffered severe injuries that night, including 2 broken fingers and damages to his ear canals, after John Bartlett used pens to press into his ears. Making matters worse, the officers on duty arrested the bloodied Frank by 3:09 a.m. despite being the victim of brutality. Because of the injuries, Frank was taken to the hospital where doctors and nurses were left horrified by his state. But luckily, the events triggered an internal investigation into the officers who were involved in Frank's beating. And in the investigation, Captain James Golewski would discover that within the Milwaukee Police Department was a rogue group of officers who called themselves the Punishers. And of course, the name being based on the hero we just mentioned. Now, Captain James alleged that the officers who harmed Frank during the housewarming party were part of this group, which could explain their violent behavior despite not having evidence that Frank had committed any crime at all. The officers were allegedly found to have tattoos, car decals, and stickers on their lockers, and memos inspired by the skull emblem of the Marvel anti-hero. Some even had the skull logo with the number 7, indicating the Milwaukee District 7 Police Department where they were employed. John Bartlett was even caught trying to purchase a heavy firearm, similar to what the comic book character used after he was out on bail, awaiting the Frank Jude Jr. trial. Ultimately, the so-called Milwaukee Punishers were sentenced for their crimes against Frank, while the victim received a settlement of $2 million from the city of Milwaukee. But still, the official Milwaukee Police Department denied that the Punisher group ever existed, and the investigation into this matter seemed to have stopped. For the last story, however, investigations and even arrests are still ongoing to this day, and this is because a seemingly vibrant event has turned into the venue of a disturbing crime that has countless victims.
It's all part of a sting operation targeting traffickers at Comic-Con last weekend. The San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force worked with the Department of Justice as well as the San Diego Sheriffs and the police departments to conduct this sting.
Earlier, I mentioned the jaw-dropping announcement of Avengers Doomsday and the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. This happened during the Marvel panel in San Diego Comic-Con of 2024. But apart from this announcement, this panel also hyped up the upcoming releases of Deadpool and Wolverine, Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four First Steps. Much like in every other Comic-Con in the last 2 decades, Marvel dropped their biggest news to great fanfare. But what their audience failed to notice, however, was that just outside the walls of Marvel's Hall H, a bigger and more disturbing event was unfolding. Unbeknownst to thousands of people attending the celebration of geek culture, up to 50 officers in plain clothing mingled with the crowd throughout the event. And this was because multiple government departments, including the FBI and Homeland Security, had formed a special task force to investigate and prevent a crime that they expected would be committed during the Comic-Con. And what was this crime? It was human trafficking, especially involving younger people. San Diego, California apparently ranked 13 for the most reported cases of trafficking in major cities at the time. And according to General Attorney General Bob Bonta of the San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force,
traffickers specialize on large-scale events such as Comic-Con to take advantage of their victims for profit.
With this in mind, agents from the Special Task Force posted ads on online chat websites luring both potential victims and suspects for meetups during Comic-Con. And then on the day of the event, 34 to 50 undercover cops posed as buyers during Comic-Con weekend to approach people they believed were victims. This all happened around people who were innocently cosplaying, buying merchandise, and eagerly waiting to meet and greet their favorite celebrities. Surprisingly, despite the large operation, even organizers of San Diego Comic-Con weren't notified about the sting. Event goers also didn't suspect anything was happening, as the entire operation was kept kept quiet. And then eventually they struck. By deploying their ads and posing as potential sellers of human trafficking, they arrested countless potential buyers. Overall, 14 buyers and traffickers were arrested. At the same time, 10 victims were rescued, including a 16-year-old girl. This confirmed what the Special Task Force feared, that vibrant events at Comic-Con were being used for crimes against the younger generation. So far, the department has yet to release the names of the suspects, and the charges against these people haven't been made public. The victims' information, of course, is also protected to secure their privacy. However, the director of Bilateral Safety Corridor Coalition, Marisa Ugard, did assure the public that they would be caring for their victims.
We do crisis intervention, we do case management, we find them jobs, housing, and everything.
But of course, the battle isn't done. After the success of the Sting operation during Comic-Con 2024, similar missions were done in major events like the Super Bowl 2025 in New Orleans. Another operation also happened during the San Diego Comic-Con in 2025, which arrested another 13 suspected traffickers.
Bro. Wow. Well, YouTube, that was the video for today. I'ma catch y'all. I'ma see y'all tomorrow. Whoa, hold on. Alright, YouTube, I'll catch y'all tomorrow and shit. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace, y'all.